And good morning.
Good morning.
I hope everybody is warm and cozy here in the church, because it's cold outdoors. I first learned that when I woke up this morning and had to take the dog for a walk. Well, this is the second Sunday of Epiphany. And one of the things that pops out in all three of those lessons is the theme of God's calling somebody at some point to follow God. Isaiah is called to follow God, and he kind of hesitates, and God says, nope, you're going to do it anyway. Paul speaks for God and says, by him you were called into the fellowship of our Lord Jesus Christ. And then simple words that Jesus spoke in that Gospel of John, come and see. Come and see. All of us are called by God at some point. All of us are called by God to do something at some point. We may not recognize it. We may not be aware of all that goes on with God and us in our relationships with God, but it's there nonetheless. Come and see. I used to have people ask me a lot about, when did you really feel like you were called to be a priest? And my original answer when I was still in high school was, I'd love to see all of those priests up there in their vestments and doing all this thing. That sounds like something I'd like to do. That's not a good reason for a call to do ministry. Although it's a fun reason. I mean, I like it. I don't wear it on the street all the time. But when I was interviewed by the Bishop of Virginia to go to seminary and so on, he says, who was the most influential person in helping you to decide that you are called to be a priest? And he expected somebody, some priest or bishop in the church. And I looked at him and I said, the one who really influenced me in the right way to do ministry and to be a priest in the church was Martin Luther King Jr. And he looked at me and shook his head and he said, what are you talking about? Where do you know him from? I said, well, you know him from a lot of different places. But I said, my first real contact with him came when I lived in Washington, D.C. in 1963 and had the honor of being in that crowd at the Lincoln Memorial to hear Martin Luther King speak. And it always stuck in my mind that I have a dream. I have a dream. And so I went back and I started looking for different things. By the way, the bishop thought that was a good idea. So I was accepted as a postulant and went to seminary. And while there and studying the Hebrew scriptures, I came across the book of Joel. And in the book of Joel, there's a place where it says, your young men and women shall prophesy, and your young men will have visions, and your old men will dream dreams. Well, I was one who in my early time of ministry really liked to envision ministry, envision what can happen, what can I do to bring ministry alive and get it out into the world and see that there is a God that speaks to different groups and individuals to enable them to come to that same realization of God's presence with us. So in my visions, I got very involved in community activities. And in fact, in the large church in Spartanburg, my title was Youth Minister and Community Outreach. Well, what better can you have visions than working with youth and outreach? And you better have good visions than working with youth. And you better have good vision working with older people also, I learned. But the vision there was that we were going to develop a way to be able to give help to those who were homeless or on the road or in some way needed help, whether it's food or clothing or a place to stay overnight. We were going to develop some form of that outreach, and we made it an ecumenical group that was made up of all the churches in town, and it worked. That was a good vision. In working with youth, one of the things that I came across was that there were a large number of young people, not just in the Episcopal Church, but throughout the community, that were involved in using drugs. And so we developed a drug crisis center based on volunteer helpers, and they were trained by mental health professionals, and we had our own place to go, and we got started and saw many, many young people, and then started to see some older folks too coming through the center. Another good vision, and a good vision for community outreach. And I'm not going to go through and list all the visions I had, because that would take, don't have 4 hours. I didn't think so. There's some good stuff out there too I saw on the counter, so we're not going to stay 4 hours. But then comes the time that you give up the visions and you dream dreams. You dream of what could have been or what might be, but you don't have the same impetus to envision going out and doing things. Now, I have to say, and I know that I'm younger than some people in this room, but still, I'm 80, and that means I'm getting old. I didn't realize that until I turned 80. Then had to accept that fact that, you do get old. And you come to realize some things, and you come to see some things that are different. I've spent the last 3 months doing a lot of meditating and soul searching on where am I in my life and my ministry. What am I doing now? Do I want to just sit back and relax and put my feet up and say, oh, I've served almost 50 years. I don't need to do anything anymore. But there's a part of me that says, that's dreaming. And that's not a good dream. Because we all want to be doing something as we get older. Not the same thing. I don't want to do the same thing. I want to come back and work with small churches. I spent my time in the big churches back in South Carolina. But I want to work now with small churches to be there when they need somebody to come and be with them on a Sunday morning or in crisis or something like that. To be able to reach out to these smaller churches, like the church here, St. Luke's in Weiser. It's fun. You'd be surprised how many different new people you meet as you go along through doing these kinds of ministries. And it's fun. It's real fun because you meet so many people and you see so many of God's creatures going through the same kinds of thinking and wondering and dreaming of who am I and what am I doing at this stage of my life. And so, dream dreams, have visions. Younger folks have visions. Do something with those visions. God calls us. God calls each of us to something. Not everybody's called to be a priest in the church. Not everybody's called to be real active in the church. Not everybody is called to be very active in community activities, but everybody is called to something. Maybe it's simply loving your wife or your husband or your children. Maybe it's that simple. Jesus has those words that I think are the best words of hearing as a call. Come and see. Come and see. Take the time. Take the time to stop and see. I remember, as I said, my time to hear Martin Luther King Jr., and that had a tremendous effect on me. And reaching out and doing work in communities. And envisioning what can be if we allow ourselves to move in those good directions, whatever they may be. So, come see. That's an invitation. Jesus invites each of us. Come see. What are you going to say? Come see. Come see what I have to offer. Come see what is going to happen in the next 3 years. Come see what it means to have your name transformed from Simon to Peter. Come see what it means to be fishers who catch men and women. Come see what it is that you're following. Come see. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be enlightening. It's going to be something that's different and exciting. Come see. That's the best advice any of us can give to anybody else. Come see. Come see what our Lord Jesus Christ calls us to. Come see what it is that we are wanting to do. Maybe it's simply, as Paul puts it, we are called into the fellowship of Jesus Christ, better known in this day and age as the church. Maybe we're just called to be part of the church and to do the things that we do in church. I'm going to close with a story again from Spartanburg. We had a retired archbishop from Canada in the Diocese of Upper South Carolina, and he filled in sometimes for the bishop of the diocese. And he came, he had a British accent, and he came to Church of the Advent in Spartanburg, and he's a wonderful person. He's a very loving person, and he stands up in the pulpit, and he's dressed in his best and finest vestments, and he looks out and he said, "Thank you for inviting me to be with you. I love to do bishopy things." What a wonderful attitude to have. I love to do bishopy things. I love to do priestly things. I love to do human things. It's just beyond what one can say. And in this day and age, we need all of that messaging that says, come see, all the time. We need that all the time in a world that's always in upheaval and never settled down. So, come see. It's a good invitation. It's not my invitation. That's the invitation of Jesus Christ, to come and see what it means to follow the teachings and the actions of Jesus Christ that lead us into that deepest relationship with God the Father. It's exciting, it's fun, and it's happy. We can joke, we can laugh. You know, that's one of the things that church should be. It's fun. And we are allowed to smile and laugh in church. I think God gave us humor for that purpose. So, come see Amen.